Listening to that gun heads up, it makes you realize something. Our criminal government is not good at anything. They blow everything. They screw up everything. Our government is very good, though, at one thing, and that is making criminals out of us. Excellent. They do a great job on that. Okay, so, and here's another case in point. This is in Minnesota, but folks, if you live in a blue state, look for this to come your way, because the wet dream of the left is to get rid of Amendment 2 and Amendment 1. Because nobody would ever vote for what it is they believe in if they knew what they were up to. So they got to hide it behind language, and if somebody comes along and says, oh, wait a minute, hold on a second, that's not right, they don't want to hear it. That's why they freak out on college campuses. That's why they don't debate you. They shout you down, and they call that free speech. And, of course, it's not. But I think that's what they're told by their communist professors. But anyway, so in Minnesota, somebody by the name of Samantha, and I don't have her last name here. I think it began with a V. That's my fault. I didn't type it in. But she looks kind of like sort of quasi-Asian Pacific Islander. I don't know if she was actually born here or not. But you can still serve in your state legislature. But anyway, so there she is promoting her new bill. And the new bill is a bias registry. Now think about that. They will determine who is biased and enter their name in a registry. So, yeah, you can be in a gun registry and you can be in a bias registry. Here, listen to the two of them going back and forth. This ought to scare the hell out of anybody who considers themselves to be an American.
If a Minnesotan writes an article claiming or arguing that COVID-19 is a Chinese bioweapon that leaked from a lab in Wuhan, and someone reports that article to the Department of Human Rights, is that something that the Department of Human Rights should put in their bias registry under your bill?
That is bias motivated, and so that can be considered a bias incident.
Okay, that can be considered a bias incident. Did you here? Listen to this again. Let it soak in.
If a Minnesotan writes an article claiming or arguing that COVID-19 is a Chinese bioweapon that leaked from a lab in Wuhan, and someone reports that article to the Department of Human Rights, is that something that the Department of Human Rights should put in their bias registry under your bill?
That is bias motivated, and so that can be considered a bias incident.
That is bias motivated, and hold on a second. No mention here of whether it's true or not. And of course, by now, I mean, we have we have the FBI, we also have the Energy Department, Livermore Labs, have both said definitely it came from a Chinese lab. But if you write this or tweet it in Minnesota, and apparently it's passed the House. And there's a similar bill in the Senate that I think has also been passed. So once they weld those two together, you're screwed. So, yeah, so get on Twitter and claim that the Chinese virus is actually from China. Then you can be entered into the bias registry. Now, again, ask yourself, once you're in that registry, how are they going to use that? Well, you know what they're going to do with it. They're going to do the worst they can do because that's what they do. They're going to use that to smear your name. They're going to use that to prevent you from getting a job, especially a state job, okay? Because employers will be required to check the bias registry before they hire anybody. See? So at this point now, your life is over and your career is done, and the progressives will make sure, the Marxists, let's call them what they really are, they're communists. The communists will make sure that you are a disappearnik, just like in the old Soviet Union. All right, isn't this fun? Okay, so again, Harry, we have the FBI and we have the Energy Department both saying that the virus started in the Wuhan lab, and she wants to brand it wrongthink. Is that pretty much it?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. It was really stunning. And essentially, the reason that this bias registry that Minnesota Democrats are advocating is so scary is because it's entirely subjective and in the eye of the perceived victim.
what is something that is biased speech that the government should be surveilling and tracking. You know, it's part of really a cautionary tale for the rest of the country about what radical progressives will do if you give them narrow control in a purple state to consolidate power very quickly.
And the victim gets to decide what the actual crime is. So if the victim doesn't like you, if the victim likes you, then maybe the victim will let it pass. But and even then, I mean, the victim's not a victim. If they like you, if they don't like you, well, then we can throw the book at you and get you into the registry and ruin your life. Isn't that how it works? Okay. And as I said earlier, George Orwell wrote 1984 as a warning. The left sees it as an instruction manual. So who decides what is and is not bias?
Well, that's a good question that we asked, and I've gotten different answers from different lawmakers who are advocating this. Some, Representative Bang, who you had showed on the screen, who authored the underlying bill that was put into a big omnibus, said that bureaucrats at the Minnesota Department of Human Rights would have discretion to decide whether things are biased or not and should go into this government speech surveillance database. Another Democrat representative, the author of the omnibus bill that this was incorporated into, said all of them would if the victim perceives it as being bias motivated. And so either way, it's a way to chill speech. Obviously legitimate political speech. The clip you showed is just one example that I tried to use of several different examples from across the spectrum. Where we're talking about legitimate political opinions that people express in the marketplace of ideas. And if the government doesn't like it, or if a victim doesn't like it, or a certain person on the other side of the aisle doesn't like it, then under the bill that we passed out of the Minnesota House, and similar language has already passed out of the Senate, that's going to go into what's really almost a Soviet-style snitch line, or a CCP-style social credit scoring database that we don't know what the Department of Human Rights or what the government is going to do with that in the future. They say they want to use it to shape future legislation, and that's pretty scary too.
Yeah, I'll say. You know, what they ought to call this is the snowflake law. Either that or the people who feel bad law.
But the advocates of the bill, yes, that is how they essentially describe it, that it is about how a person perceives not just crimes. I wanted to limit this registry to things that were criminal incidents, and they, on a party line vote, rejected it. They want to include in this thing speech that makes people feel bad, speech that makes people feel like they are being targeted for this laundry list of protected classes. Things like gender identity, gender expression, national origin, religion, etc. The whole long list of protected classes. They want to, if you feel bad for one of those reasons about someone's speech, then they think you should report that speech to the government.
You know, the way the country was decided, the Supreme Court, of course, is the, at least if you believe Marbury versus Madison, the Supreme Court is the decider about things constitutional. But up until recently, we really didn't have people doing things that were blatantly against the Bill of Rights. But now we have a bunch of people who don't believe in the Bill of Rights. They want to tear down the Bill of Rights. They want to end free speech. They want to end firearms ownership. We've got all these people in prison in D.C. Where's their right to a speedy trial? They've been there for 2 years. No trial date. I mean, they don't care. First of all, the 9th and the 10th Amendment might as well not even exist. So my suggestion would be, how about a law and call it the Constitution Protection Act? And we set it up so that when states or the federal government or whoever it is does something that triggers the Constitution Protection Act, we don't wait. We don't wait 2 years for it to work its way through the courts. It goes right to the Supreme Court in literally days.